All right, I think we are live now. Just
Yeah.
checking. Second.
Okay.
All right, yeah, we are live now. So,
Yeah.
well,
Very.
hello everyone. I'm Shivay from Scalar, and with us, of course, is Rishi because we are conducting this live session on his channel. But we'll just wait for a couple of minutes. Till then, we'll recommend everyone to just grab a cup of coffee or grab a cup of milk, whatever you want, and then we'll be starting in a couple of minutes. And I'm personally really excited for this session and interacting with Rishi because he has such an amazing experience and such a long experience of having worked in the software industry. So really excited to be speaking with him. But yes, at any point of time, if anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. And really excited for this. So we'll just be starting in the next couple of minutes.
Yeah. Sounds good. Yes.
Until then, I'll recommend the entire audience to please invite your friends and people you know if they are also interested to learn more about how can one actually apply to large tech companies. And even if you are let's say a full-time working experience, you have full-time working experience and you want to actually switch into new job roles, how you can actually do so this session will really cover a lot of aspects of core software development and how you can transition into your software development journey. So, please do share about this session with your friends as well. And we'll be just starting in the next couple of minutes.
Yes. MCS students can do anything, not just Microsoft.
All right. I think we can probably start, Rishi. We can
Yeah. Sure.
start because we have around 40 people. So it's good to see so many people live right now. So, yeah, without wasting any further time, let's get started. So, just a very quick introduction about myself. I'm Shivay. I'm a developer advocate at Scalar, and I do a lot of different things from actually mentoring and taking sessions as an instructor related to open source. So, helping out the learners with getting started with GitHub, and also doing a lot of these community engagement, especially for our Discord community, which today is having more than 100,000 members. So I conduct a lot of boot camps related to DevOps and web development as well, and especially with open source. And of course, I love to take these interviews and interact with folks from the community, from the developer world, to actually share with everyone how you can get inspired and you can also do great things as folks like Rishi have been able to do so in their career. So yeah, that's a very quick introduction about myself. Rishi, if you would want to introduce also the folks who might be probably joining from the scalar side of things on your YouTube channel.
Yes. Thank you so much, Shivai, for starting. Yes. My name is Rishi, and at present, I am working for Microsoft Ireland. I have around 8+ years of experience. I started my journey from a very small company, or मेरे career journey के अंदर I have worked in like small scale, large scale, service based, product based, छोटी product based, now बड़ी product based. So yeah, I have my fair share of experience. Also, I graduated in 2012, so that was like around 10 years back. Or since then, I have been juggling between different things. कि अच्छा ये कर लेते हैं. Government job भी करी थी थोड़े time तक and all those things. So I have that kind of experience. So yeah, this is what I am, and probably what I have done so far in my career. If I share with the wider community, it will probably be helpful for them. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, absolutely, Rishi. So, it was really good to just see your experience and how, like, you have now 8 years of experience, and now you're going to be working with Microsoft Dublin. So it's a really inspiring journey to showcase. And I would love to know, like, about your career beginnings. Like, how did you actually get into tech? And if you don't mind sharing with us, like, from like being a student, like, from a rural part of India, and then actually grabbing
Yeah,
an
yeah,
international offer in Microsoft Dublin. So would love to know this entire journey. How did it start for you?
yeah. So, okay, I'll start from the very beginning. So I did my 12th in 2008, like आपके 12-14 साल पहले, something like that. And then I did my BTech. So BTech जो है मैंने एक हरियाणा, so I am from गुड़गांव. गुड़गांव के पास है, गुड़गांव एक डिस्ट्रिक्ट है, तो गुड़गांव डिस्ट्रिक्ट में हरियाणा के अंदर there are many villages. I come from a rural background. मैं एक गांव वाले पृष्ठभूमि बैकग्राउंड से आता हूँ. और मेरी स्कूलिंग भी वहीं हुई है. मेरी स्कूलिंग गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में हुई है. गांव में ही गवर्नमेंट स्कूल था. एंड देन एक गांव से थोड़े दूर एक जगह थी, वहां एक गवर्नमेंट स्कूल था. तो आई एम फ्रॉम गवर्नमेंट स्कूल. पहली बात तो ये, ठीक है. एंड देन गवर्नमेंट स्कूल में यूजुअली आपको विद इन गवर्नमेंट स्कूल आपका तो सही है, टीचर्स अच्छे हैं, बट आपको बाहर की दुनिया में उतना ज्यादा नहीं पता है. अभी सिचुएशन थोड़ी चेंज है, मेरे टाइम पे उतना ज्यादा नहीं पता था. तो उस टाइम पे ये सोचना है कि आपको क्या ब्रांच लेनी है, दैट वाज वेरी आर्डुअस टू डिसाइड. इट वाज वेरी हार्ड टू डिसाइड, बिकॉज पहली बात तो ये कि मेरे को यही नहीं पता था कि ए आई ट्रिपल ई और आई आई टी जेई अलग अलग होते हैं उस टाइम पर. सो वो लेवल था बिल्कुल, मतलब कुछ नहीं पता है. उस टाइम पे आई वॉज रीडिंग अबाउट, मतलब कभी पेपर में पढ़ लिया माइक्रोसॉफ्ट के बारे में या एप्पल के बारे में. तो बिल गेट्स और स्टीव जॉब्स, इनको मैं जानता था. एंड आई वाज लाइक, अच्छा ठीक है, इनके जैसा कुछ कर सकते हैं. अनदर वाज कल्पना चावला, जो शी आई बिलीव पास्ड अवे इन 2003 और समटाइम बैक देन. और शी वॉज माई वन ऑफ आइडल्स, जिनको मैं मानता था कि हाँ, कल्पना चावला ने जिस तरीके से करनाल से शी वेंट टिल नासा और वो एस्ट्रोनॉट बने, दैट वाज वेरी मोटिवेशनल थिंग फॉर मी. तो उस चीज से मेरे को था कि हाँ, मतलब आईटी में या कंप्यूटर साइंस में कुछ करना है. लेकिन गांव वालों में क्या होता है ना, गांव वालों को या तो एग्रीकल्चर आता है या फिर उनको गवर्नमेंट जॉब पता है. दो चीजें उनको पता है. सो सेम मेरे ऊपर था. एग्रीकल्चर वाला मेरा बैकग्राउंड था नहीं, हमारे घर में एग्रीकल्चर का नहीं है. बट मेरे फादर, ग्रैंडफादर, ये सब गवर्नमेंट जॉब के अंदर थे. तो आई वाज पुश फॉर कि गवर्नमेंट वाली जॉब में जा सकते हैं, ऐसी ब्रांच चूज करनी है. ठीक है. तो उसको ही ध्यान में रखते हुए 11th-12th में आई टुक साइंस स्ट्रीम. एंड देन आई टुक ए आई ट्रिपल वाला एग्जाम. और समहाउ कॉम्बिनेशन से मेरे को एक बहुत, मतलब टियर 3 यूनिवर्सिटी है हरियाणा में, विच इज गुरु जम्बेश्वर यूनिवर्सिटी. अभी इट्स लिटिल बेटर इन टर्म्स ऑफ इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर एंड अदर थिंग्स. उस टाइम पे नहीं था उतना. दैट आई ज्वाइंट एंड आई ऑप्ट फॉर कंप्यूटर साइंस. कंप्यूटर साइंस मैंने इसलिए करा था कि एक साल कंप्यूटर साइंस करके देख लेते हैं कि कैसा लगता है. सेकेंड ईयर के जस्ट पहले हमको ऑप्शन मिलता है कि आप अपनी ब्रांच चेंज कर सकते हो. तो मैंने वो एक साल देखा कि कैसे लगते हैं. आई आई एक्चुअली स्टार्टेड लाइकिंग इट. कैसे कंप्यूटर थोड़ा सा बेटर है. एक तो एसी लैब में बैठने को मिल जाता था, तो दैट वाज डिफरेंट फ्रॉम अदर ब्रांचेस. लकीली आई स्टेड इन कंप्यूटर साइंस. तो मैंने इलेक्ट्रॉनिक्स या मैकेनिकल में अपने आप को कन्वर्ट नहीं कराया सेकंड ईयर के स्टार्टिंग में.
Yeah, by the way,
बट
Rishi,
या
just one
या
thing. I think a few comments are mentioning that they are not able to understand Hindi. So I think we can probably, there are a couple of
yeah
comments.
yeah
Yeah.
we can yeah directly, let's jump to English. So so this is how I got into Guru Jambeshwar University of Science and Technology, which is like a tier 3 university. And it was not very good in terms of the teaching and the infrastructure at that point of time. And so this is how I got into the college. But getting into the college was not everything. Uh, so I am coming from a rural background. I was good in my school time. Unfortunately, in my second semester, I failed in mathematics. So I'm not just who is coming from a rural background. I am somebody who failed in BTech. And so, like failing in BTech to coming to Microsoft Ireland, this is like it can be done. So then I failed in my second semester. Somehow I was able to clear my supplementary exam, that is like the backlog. And by fourth year, I was more interested. By third year, I got more interested into GATE exam. GATE was there because it was the, if we clear GATE with really good rank, we would be able to get into IIT or NIT, which are like the prestigious institutes. So it was always a dream, like, okay, to get into a prestigious institute and from there to get into a prestigious organization, example Microsoft. Okay, and I took GATE in third year, and then I failed in GATE in third year. I took it again in fourth year. I got a decent rank, but not decent enough to get into NIT or IIT. So then I was like, I graduated, but sadly without a job. There was no job. And then it took me around 6, 7 months. I graduated in May 2012. And then it took me till November that I was able to find a decent job. And I got interviewed upon my Java skills. So I learned Java in those 6, 7 months, and I was able to get a very decent, very small scale company, a startup kind of environment. But I was able to get into that, and then from there I started my journey. But the dream of getting into prestigious institute and then getting into prestigious organization, it was still there. So I was again taking GATE multiple times. The score was not getting improved. Then I took coaching from Ravindra Babu Ragula. There is one very famous teacher. And in my fourth attempt, that was like third year, I actually got a very decent rank. And then there I decided like, okay, if this could be improved, I would be able to get into NIT or IIT. So then I switched to Infosys organization. So I was in product-based company, which was also small scale, but I took a decision. Okay, let's get into Infosys, which is a service-based company, and probably I'll be able to secure a better rank in GATE after getting into Infosys because the pressure won't be that much. And there I took GATE again, and fortunately I got a decent rank, and I then jumped into NIT Karnataka. It's like very entangled journey, probably too many twists and turns. But I graduated, then I started a job in private company, then into service-based company, and then into NIT Karnataka. There I also got an offer from BSNL, like a government job. So I dropped out of NIT Karnataka, got into government job. Didn't like it. It was so bad that the day I started at my location, like the office location. It was in Almora in Uttarakhand. It was a beautiful location, but the infrastructure was super bad. I started crying. Like, okay, I used to be part of Infosys, which is like really nice infrastructure. And looking at that BSNL infrastructure, it was like I started crying, and then I was like, okay, no, I am required to go back to IT sector because that is what I love. I have done everything else. GATE, it is not required. Get into NIT Karnataka or prestigious institute, it is not required because I know that once I was in NIT Karnataka, I saw people they were working hard by themselves. NIT Karnataka was just there as an infrastructure, as an institute. So anything which could be done when you are inside a prestigious institute, it can be done even if you are not part of that. So that was the one learning I took out of NIT Karnataka. And then after BSNL, I started preparing again, got into Accenture. And at that point of time, till that point of time, I have tried multiple things to learn on my own, the DSA and system design skills. So I started from the book Cracking the Coding Interview, but it was just a book. And then I moved to this HackerRank and HackerEarth I really liked. And from HackerRank, I improved upon to get into this interview bit. There used to be interview bit. Now there is Scalar. There is one website interview bit. So that was like curated approach, like gamification of learning. And after that, I moved to Udemy because interview bit was limited that it will give you certain questions and their answers, but nobody is there to teach you when you are stuck. Okay, then you are in Udemy like environment where somebody is teaching you. Okay, but that is a recorded session, and even if you get stuck, you will put some question. Somebody will answer you like after 24 hours, and then if you are stuck, then you lose your motivation. So I was trying after all these things, one step after another. I was like, okay, I require something which is something like a university, but not actually a university. And luckily, Scalar came around that point of time. And then so at that point of time, Scalar was like having this really nice entrance test and then one interview. At that point, there used to be an interview. So I cracked that, and then I got into Scalar. I started in uh, January 2020. My batch was January 2020. I prepared really hard when I was in Scalar because I also had a full-time job in Accenture. So that full-time job was taking like 10 hours or 12 hours per day. Along with that, parallel to that, I was also giving my hours and my like burning my midnight oil in Scalar, learning a lot of things. And then when I graduated from Scalar, I actually got into a really nice product company. That is Nitomic, my last company. And during that part of like 9, 10 months, I learned a lot, which the skills which were never in my resume, like DSA, system design, the development with actually like what is development, kind of that approach. And those things, I added those skills to my CV, and then I was able to get into a really nice product company, which is Nitomic. And the environment was good, tech culture was good, team was good, the product I was working on was really nice. And there I stayed for 1 year, like 7, 8 months, and then I moved to this Microsoft Ireland eventually. This is how I grew from somebody who is coming from a rural background, but I also failed in my second semester in BTech. So it's not like I'm super intelligent. I was below average in my university, and a below average person with consistency and hard work and some support, they can do really nice things. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's truly inspiring to hear about your entire journey from, like, starting off from very humble background to getting into now Ireland, because, like, there are so many people who like to actually apply for job roles, but there is, like, probably so many less opportunities that are generally there in, like, whenever you want to apply for like some of the larger firms, and then even a small fraction of those are probably like, actually end up getting like an international offer in
Yeah.
larger firms.
Yeah.
So, like,
Definitely.
that journey from starting out failing in one of your exams in college to getting that, it's truly inspirational. And I know that, like, a lot of people who are tuning in live today will definitely benefit from it. So actually, I mean, I personally just had a couple of questions to you specifically from your journey aspect, right? So as you mentioned that having started with having less to very, like, zero to very less knowledge of computers, especially because a lot of times what happens is that, like, a lot of actually students have that kind of an experience that they join computer science because they hear the term computer science when they are, like, let's say in their 12th, or they want to actually do engineering, right? So what was your first experience directly with the computer science itself, like that is with programming, and what was the first ever programming language that you actually learned, and how was that experience of having interacting with programming for the first time? And do you have some, like, I would say, from your experience, having, like, now been having graduated and having 80 years of experience, if someone is joining a BTech or a computer science course, what are some of the tips that you would probably want to give based on your experience of how you could have probably done that better, so that, like, our audience can actually benefit from it?
Yes. So you have two questions. One is around like when I
Yeah,
started my programming journey, and second is how could my journey could have been improved.
yeah, yeah,
What are the things that I could have changed?
yeah,
Yeah. So so the very first time I interacted with a programming language, it was in my second semester, second year, actually third semester of my BTech. So before that, I was not into programming. I have played with like Microsoft Excel or some other programs, but that was because I was in a school where there were a couple of computers in computer science lab, and they were like Windows XP used to be there, and okay, I saw that there is a computer. It looks something like this, but I never have heard about like programming language. If there is like a programming language, it was only in my second year, in my third semester, when I got into this course, C language. So that was the first thing. But the issue with that C language course was that it was very theoretical. Okay, it was taught very theoretically. It was taught in a very traditional fashion, where they will teach you C language on a blackboard or a whiteboard. Yeah. So that is not the right way to learn a language. When you learn a language, it's basically when you, so I believe you're like muted. Let me unmute. Sure, you are muted.
no, actually, I was just like hearing you, that's right.
Okay, okay, okay. Yeah. So that is not the right way to learn a language. To learn a language, you are required to communicate in that language. That is, you're required to write programs. Okay. So the very first thing which I could have changed is that to change the way in which universities or colleges are teaching. The problem with universities and colleges is that people who are teaching there, they are professors. I give you a contrary example of a medical college. People who are teaching there are doctors. A doctor is somebody who is like part of an actual running hospital. Somebody who might have done operation one day earlier, he will be teaching about that operation in a medical college the other day. On the contrary, people who are teaching in a BTech college or a BCA or MCA college, they are professors who are not part of industry. They know what they know since like by their background like 10, 12 years before. Okay. You are required to learn from people who are in the industry to know about the stuff which is going around. Okay, what is going on in the world? It's changing so rapidly that a physical traditional university can't keep up its pace. Yeah. So that was the issue. The first thing is that first thing which I want to change is that instead of learning from professors, learn from people who are working in that particular strata. Example, if you want to learn data science, then learn from a data scientist. Okay. If you want to learn a software development, go with a software developer who is actually working in software development domain. He will be able to help you out more. That is the first thing. Second is what has changed since then when I graduated till this point of time. Uh, there are a couple of things in terms of resources which have changed. One is internet is very high. It is having very high speed at this point of time. At my time, it was very slow. We used to. I remember using a BSNL wire, that dial-up connection. It was having like 256 kbps speed,
Yeah.
and I got a bill of like 2,000 in a month. So it was not cheap and it was very slow. So I was not able to learn a lot with the help of like internet resources which were there on internet. In our state, the resources which are there on internet, it's abundant. They are abundantly available. Problem with currently available resources on internet is that they are scattered. Nobody has so people are not interested in putting down every resource available in a bundle. Why? Because it takes time, and time is very precious. So only those who are working in really nice firms, they will know this particular piece of blog or piece of video is actually good to learn a stuff. Okay. And they won't basically bundle it. Why? Because it takes time, and they do not they simply do not have time. So although everything which is required to get into really nice company to get succeeded in software development or data science domain is available on internet, we require a structured approach to learn that. Yeah. These are the things which I would have been like if it could have been changed in my point of time. Probably the success which is now I am seeing after 8, 9 years, I might have seen this earlier.
By the way, actually, we are seeing a lot of questions. So I just want to tell the audience that we'll be taking up all the questions towards the end of the session. So stay tuned and please, try to watch through this entire, this entire journey. Yeah, but Rishi, one point that I really loved was the fact that you mentioned that the analogy that you gave for a doctor, right? That a doctor is the one who is actually teaching the practical to medical students, but that is not generally the case when you are working in a or when you're studying in a a BTech or a BCA course, because the teachers are they probably have done their BTech, MTech, or even a PhD, but then they rarely have an industrial experience. And I think
Correct.
one of the biggest factors that I, because I also graduated from an undergrad degree from a from a I guess like a tier 3 college, and I can definitely correlate to it because even in our case, and this is actually generally the case for most of the engineering colleges within India, that your first year is really not very focused towards computer science. You have generally a lot of different mathematics, physics, and a bunch of other subjects that might not really be useful to you. It's good to get a glimpse of other other sectors of engineering, but yes, at the same time, it's not very like not a direct straightforward path to actually get into computer science, and especially like as I mentioned, that the teachers not having that experience, that industrial experience, that kind of like then lacks when a student might actually apply for full-time roles. So yeah, I mean, I really liked your points, so thank you so much for sharing that. Would you also probably just mind sharing your journey? So, as you spoke about that, you have now had experience of working in both, product-based companies, and then you have also worked with service-based companies. So, what are some of the core differences that you have found? Because a lot of times, what we do is that we just shun, that hey, you shouldn't actually work in a in a service-based company. But do you feel there were some advantages that you actually gained by actually working in a service based company, and how has that experience probably helped you in the product based company? Because as you mentioned that you worked for some time in a small product based company, then you switched over and you had a large part of your career being spent into companies like Accenture and Infosys, and then finally your past few years you have been working in some good product based companies, including now in Microsoft. So
Yeah.
I mean, the question essentially is that, what was some of the differences that you felt inside of your journey working as software developer in service-based and product-based companies, and whether, there was any benefit of actually having worked inside of a service-based company, and how did it actually help you in your journey?
Yes. So although usually when we compare a service-based company to a product-based company, we are biased towards product-based company because they pay well. Uh, Mainly, you are part of that product-based company. You won't be working on somebody's product via service-based company. So you are directly part of that product-based company. Also, the growth of learning, it will be really steep. It will be really nice when you are in product-based company. But there are things which falls into bucket of service-based company. One is that uh, you get to work upon a scale which is way larger than which is being handled by many product-based companies. Yeah. So most of the product-based companies which we see around, they might not be having the scale of like probably a million per day, a million queries per day. I was part of Infosys and I was working for a company which is a chocolate, which makes chocolate, and they required Infosys help in managing their sales and distribution infra. Okay, and the scale was 1 million plus queries per day. This was the scale. It was really nice scale when I was like 2012, 2013 perspective. Okay, and so one is that you get to work upon, if you're lucky, on projects which are having really nice scale, and with scale you learn a lot of stuff in terms of architecture. I was part of Accenture. From there, I was part of really big firm called Fidelity, and we were creating like we were converting their monolithic architecture to microservice architecture, and it was really nice to see how earlier running architecture is now fitting into an architecture which people are evolving upon. So, what are the benefits of moving from an older architecture to this microservices based new architecture? And seeing that scale shift from monolithic to microservices, it was very, very beneficial. Probably when you are part of, so when I became part of Nitomi, Nitomi is having its own domain. Like, okay, it's working on one AI specific domain. If you're part of Accenture, probably you can work in one project for 2, 3 years, learn certain kind of technology, learn certain kind of stuff, then move to another project. So to change the type of technology or kind of work you want to work upon, you are not required to change company. Okay. That is a thing which I believe this services companies are better. Yeah.
So I mean, yeah, that definitely makes sense. That when you are working with a product-based company, I mean, you are really the owner of the entire product and the end-to-end
Yeah.
product life cycle. But it's like if you're working on the DevOps side or on front end or back end side. So that's really true. But I mean, of course, at the same time, it's not that with with a like if you're not working in a product based company and instead you're working in the in a company where like a service based company, that you won't learn. I mean, I think like the learning that you get is regardless of what experience you get, but of course you get a more concrete experience when you working in a product based company.
Yeah.
So yeah, thank you so much for sharing that. Actually, a lot of people are also asking about your journey of getting an opportunity in Microsoft. So how would you probably mind sharing how was that journey for you? How did you actually get in touch with Microsoft, and what was your interview experience like? Would you mind sharing your journey for
Yeah,
your
yep.
path
Sure.
to Microsoft
So
Dublin?
yes, so Microsoft Dublin, how it happened is that, so as I said that I joined Scalar in Jan 2020. So I was part of, like, as a mentee, I was part of Scalar till December 2020, and in December I joined Nitomi. Uh, so after joining Nitomi, I took 1.5 year more to, I was keep on polishing what I knew. So whatever hard work I did in Scalar part, like for 1 year, what I did, I created really nice text notes. Like on my iPad, I created really nice notes. And I was keep on revising and refreshing my memory, keep on solving more questions on Scalar and on Lead Code also, and some other platforms. I was reading more on system design. So I was actually preparing myself for any opportunity which come towards me. And if it is knocking on my door, I would be able to convert it. So after 1.5 years or 1.25 years, I started looking out for more opportunities. In the same way, I actually created a list of like 20, 25 companies, which are like, these are the companies which are now better than Nitomi. So I was not looking for anything which is like equal to Nitomi in terms of scale. So I was like, in terms of scale, these are the companies which are better than Nitomi. Okay, I'll go into these only. And Microsoft India was one of them. Google India was one of them. Google Europe was one of them. Microsoft Europe was one of them. So uh, I was not sure how interviews happen when you are applying for Microsoft, like specific location. In terms of Google, how it happens is that if you're applying to India, there's somebody who will take your interview from India only. If you're applying to any other location like Europe, it won't be required that somebody who you are, if you're getting interviewed for Google Poland, Warsaw, people can Google US interview you. Okay, so it's not very rigid structure. In terms of Microsoft, yeah, in terms of Microsoft Europe, it is very pertaining to specific region to which you are applying. It's like Canada is different, Ireland is different, and XXX is different. So in the same way, I was actually looking for number of ways in which I can apply. Also at that point of time, I was also looking for number of countries in which I can get into. I actually circled upon 3 countries: Germany, Netherlands, and then Ireland. These are the companies which are very immigration friendly. Germany is like very immigration friendly. Netherlands, there are some really nice companies like Booking.com,
Yeah.
and then Ireland has a couple of companies which are like really nice. So in Germany, I was to the companies which are in Germany, I applied directly. Germany, federal, like the government, they have one part of their organization which actually helps you in getting more calls. So I went there on their website, I filled their form, and they started giving me a number of job opportunities where I kept on applying directly. I got a couple of calls from Zolando, then there is like N2, couple of banks, and that was the part of Germany. In Netherlands, I applied to Booking.com. Sadly, I got like direct rejection email from their side. Probably they were not hiring in that particular department. Uh, in the same way, I observed that the better way to apply for an opportunity is go via referral. It's like if somebody knows you, if you have some reputation in somebody's eyes, they can probably refer you. So for the same, I was like, Scalar is the gold mine of community. So I went into Scalar Slack. I typed like Microsoft. Every person who was there on like Microsoft India, this is Microsoft India. Okay, somebody is from Microsoft Ireland. So I like, okay, this is the job ID I want to apply upon. I shared my CV and job ID with them. Very fortunately, a person from the same team in which the hiring was going on in Microsoft Ireland, they referred me in their team. That it was like very, so opportunity came and I was prepared. It was the only thing. Hard work was there. I was very consistent for those 1.5 years after Scalar. If I would not have been, I probably might not have converted this opportunity. Okay. The idea was that get a referral as close in the like close circle possible. So if you are applying to Microsoft Canada and you are getting a reference from Microsoft India, chances of getting a callback is are really slim. The probability is really low. But if somebody there is in Microsoft Canada and you get a referral from Microsoft Canada, it is high. If somebody is in the same team in Microsoft Canada and they are referring you, the chances are really high. Okay. So this is how a referral works. So this is like the reputation. So your referral works on reputation. So in this way, I got the referral, but referral does not make any changes to your interview process. Interview process is standard. Okay, it only expedites your interview calls. Okay, so if probably you are not getting an interview call, the person who referred you, they can look into that and they're like, okay, so and so thing is going on. Probably you'll get an interview call in a couple of weeks, something like that. But the interview process remains same, and it's a standard process which is followed all around the world in Microsoft, and that is you will either get an OA online assessment or you will get a phone screen round. Phone screen doesn't usually mean like a phone screen. It means a virtual like Google Meet or Microsoft Teams in this case. So it happens like in case of Google also the same happened with me that I got a phone screen in terms of Microsoft also and other companies also. I got in couple of companies I got OA online assessment where you are required to solve couple of questions either on Hacker Rank. I believe AWS Dublin, they send you a hacker rank test as an online assessment. I took a test for Germany, Jolando. It was on Codility. So either it's an OA or a phone screening. This is your first round. And here, probably it will be like purely technical. In terms of Microsoft, it was like technical plus they were interested in knowing about what kind of work you have done so far. So it is like phone screen. Once you are through phone screen, then there is a like probably 3 or 4 depending upon how your interviews goes. So there are 3 technical interviews, one DSA, one LLD, one HLD, standard. Okay, same process which happens in Microsoft India, Europe, US. Okay, uh, in Europe they also pressures upon your behavior. So there are a lot of pressure on your behavioral aspect, like what kind of person you are. If you're a genius, but you are basically very arrogant, very egoistic, they won't take you. They require people who are very empathetic to learn. They're very empathetic. They have a mindset to grow. That if there is something which they do not know, they will go out and they'll learn. Okay. So I was also assessed upon these 3 things in every interview, like technical plus behavioral. Eventually, once you cross, and this is specific to Microsoft, similar kind of things happen in other companies. Like in Microsoft, if you cross these 3 technical interviews, you are moved to AA as appropriate round, which is basically a techno behavioral managerial. It's a mixture of everything. Okay, so anything can be asked. In my case, it was like a techno managerial plus behavioral plus a little bit of technical. The same, it sounds very similar to, or it's very similar to what you call a bar raiser round in other companies, like in AWS or in Google. It's like bar raiser round. Okay. So if they decide that you are a good fit for the organization, it's a yes. If they decide that you have like very like strong hire in every of the interview, and even then they're like, okay, you are very egoistic, or you are somebody with whom the team want to be able to sustain, then like, okay, they won't hire you. Simple. In my case, as a prepared went well, I really enjoyed. In the same time, if you're like if you have strong hires, so basically in each of the round they will rate you like no hire, hire, strong hire. Strong hire is like getting, so it's like out of 5, are you getting 3, 4, or 5? So if you get like 1 strong hire, 2 hire, the probability is that you will be hired, and then the behavioral part will be majorly upon like what kind of work you have done and what kind of challenges you faced. If you have like higher, then you can expect that a little bit more in-depth technical interview can happen in as appropriate round. That so in a bar raiser round. Uh, Also in bar raiser round or in as appropriate round, the other company, like the representative of the company, like the manager, they will try to sell you the position. Like, okay, this is what we are doing. Okay, and we really like smart people. We really liked your background, and would you like to work for us? Something like that. So this is the whole journey. It's very standard process. Same in Microsoft, same in AWS, same in Google. Happens similarly all around the world. they do not ask you any technology specific questions until unless they have specified in their job description. Like if they're hiring for iOS engineers, you can expect iOS related questions to be there. If they're hiring for Android engineers, you can expect one Android specific round. But if they're hiring for software development engineers, then there won't be any technology specific questions. Why? Because it is not, it is not fixed that what technology you are working upon, and once you get the job, you'll get the work in similar kind of technology. The kind of work which I am doing in Microsoft, the kind of team which it is the concept which doesn't exist as a product in the world, in the tech world. It is the first time Google is trying to build their own product. Similar is AWS is trying, similar we are trying. Okay, it doesn't exist. So if you say that why Microsoft doesn't ask technology specific, like I know REST APIs, why Microsoft doesn't ask for REST APIs? Because it might be possible that they do not require you to work upon REST APIs. They might require to work upon a very novel, very new idea, and they require smart people for that. And hence they require you to go through this DSP, LLD, and HLD round. Yeah. So this is how it usually happens.
And I think Rishi, one of the questions that a few of the folks were asking was, so did you actually get to decide that once you were actually selected within Microsoft, did you get to decide that okay, you want to work on this specific team? Because if I'm aware that different companies have different ways, especially the large tech companies. For example, Google has this, way of actually giving your profile to multiple teams, and the team that has actually the requirement, then there's a sort of cultural fit around within that team, and then you are ultimately, once you actually gotten a offer from Google, it could probably take but anywhere from 1 week to even 2 to 3 months to actually get into the team where there is a vacancy. So within Microsoft, were you drafted into the current team that you're working with, or were you given a choice to select
Yeah.
which team you want to work for?
So correct. You are correct. So in Google, how does this happen? Is that they hire very generically. It's like you can be put into any of the location. You can be put into any of the team depending upon the job requirements after you have completed or sailed through your technical rounds. In Microsoft, it was pre-decided that I applied to Microsoft Identity team, which is based out of Dublin. So I knew that okay, so now identity in itself is really large. There's like 2,000 people are working there. So and then it's part of very small teams. In itself, identity, because it is composed of multiple small teams, I can be put into any of the teams. That is internal. But I knew from outside, okay, I am going to be part of identity. Okay, yeah. It's different for different organizations. Google, for most of the roles, they hire very generically. They hire smart people, raw intelligence people, and then they will put you in a right bucket. AWS, most of the time you will know what product you are going to be part of, what product is actually interviewing you, and then later what part of the product you are going to work upon is decided later. In Microsoft, similar, what team you are going to work inside in, it is decided, but inside that it is like it's very large team, and then you can become part of one of the functions on which team is working.
Alright. And I think, as you mentioned, that for Microsoft, they'll not ask you any technology specific questions, especially if you're applying for a general software development
FD
role.
role, correct.
Yeah. And of course, you have 8 years experience, and still you did have 1 to 2 rounds of data structures. Because a lot of times, at least what I've seen from my common peer group is that you just have to do data structure algorithms when once you're out of college, and then once you get into a job role, you will not have data structure algorithms. So I mean, of course, now you have had 8+ years of experience, and still you were asked data structure
PSA question.
algorithms, and
Yeah, yeah.
also you were equally asked about both high level
System design.
system design
Yeah,
and low level
system.
system design. So
Correct.
would you probably mind sharing the significance of these specific topics during your preparation and during the actual interview process, as you gave multiple interviews for some of these
Yes.
really good product based companies?
Okay. So one thing is that what happens is that DSA and system design, because it is generic and agnostic to any technology. Agnostic means it doesn't depend on any technology. It gives you and the organization a common ground where they can evaluate you and you can basically perform on a certain parameter. That is one thing. Hence, DSA system design are basically part of most of the standard interview process. Second part, which I want to share, before like working upon DSA and system design, I was not aware of it. Only once you are through this DSA and system design, your mind get wired in a certain way, and it makes you really sharp in terms of analytical abilities. Okay, something which was missing earlier. I was working very well in Accenture. I was like, okay, I was thriving in the team. Whatever task was given to me, I was working very well. It was like creating microservices. It's okay. But only once I was like, I learned DSA and I learned system design. I was able to think more clearly in terms of complexity of the program which we are writing, which matters when you scale. Okay. If you're writing a program for 10 people, to write a bad program or bad complexity program, it's okay. If you're writing it for 10 billion people, you will know that there is a latency, or there is something which can be tweaked upon and improved upon. Second is, once you learn, so there are like two parts of system design, LLD and HLD. LLD makes you a better developer. So LLD in general is design pattern, design principles, and OOPS principles, something like that. Okay. And to learn these stuff, it makes you a better developer. It's plain and simple. Doesn't matter you are coming from Python, doesn't matter you are coming from Java, C, C++. You learn LLD, you'll become a better developer. You'll write clean, extensible, maintainable code, which is the requirement in most of the organizations where the product is being used by billion of people. Second, learning HLD, it will make you understand what is going on around, like, around you inside the world. There are so many kind of technologies, how they all are interacting with each other. What is the significance of distributed systems? What is the significance of AWS or some other technology, which is basically, you're forgetting your whole model in which you are working and then putting into multiple regions. Why you're doing that? Only once you have gone through basics of HLD and have like some HLD knowledge, you will be able to appreciate what you are working upon. If you are part of Paytm and if you do not know HLD, you are missing a lot, because you are missing the whole picture. You probably know one tree out of the whole forest, but you have no idea how the whole forest is working. So this is the significance of DSA. One, it makes you and the organization come to a common ground for the evaluation. Second, it directly, indirectly makes you a super, super, super developer.
Yeah, I mean, those are like really valid points with respect to, as you mentioned, like, with the example of LLD, that you really understand the perspective of that. Okay, how should you structure your code into classes? Because, like, it really makes your object-oriented programming come to the fore. So yeah, I mean, since we are, like, heading towards the end of this session, I just probably want to ask you a couple of questions from my side, and then we can move on to the, like, questions from the audience. So one of the other points that I really loved from, like, your experience when you shared about your journey into actually being able to get one of these roles, right, was the community aspect. So I mean, I have been part of a lot of different developer communities, of course, not like really specifically limited to like job opportunities, but I have been also part of a number of different developer communities. Like, for example, as mentioned, that one of the developer communities that I actually maintain specifically within the Scalar one is the Discord community. That is like, it's a free and open source community for 100,000 people that are part of there. And we,
Yeah.
like, there are a number of activities that take place related to software development, like, conducting free boot camps and all. And I mean, of course, outside of this community, there are a number of, like, product or tech specific communities. So you'll have a really huge React community, you'll have a really huge Python community. Within, like, the cloud native space or DevOps, there are individual communities that are there. And one thing that is common amongst all of them is that all of them have this single vision, that they want to pursue. So it could be an open source community where everyone is contributing to open source, and they are sharing resources. Today, a lot of students who are actually out there are building their own student communities where they share about opportunities, where they share about how students can actually learn. So this one thing that I really love about communities is that everyone has a shared passion and that shared goal towards achieving something. So as you mentioned that you were part of this scalar community and you were getting these referrals. So I mean, would you probably want to share like what impact has communities played in your life? Because I mean, at least from what I can say is that the the way in which I actually got this role at Skiller was actually quite funny, because I was part of the student community who were hearing Arnav Gupta on one of these podcasts on basically on a one of these, I think it's called Clubhouse, right? On one of these platforms like Twitter Spaces and Clubhouse. So my friend told me that, hey, Arnav is actually coming live. They're going to be speaking about tech in general. So we should just go and attend that live. So I actually happened to become one of the speakers, and I asked Arnav a question. And Arnav reached out, later reached out to me on LinkedIn and asked me that, hey, we have a role open. Would you mind actually joining us? And then I gave a couple of interviews, and I was able to join. So even I got into my current role in a very unconventional manner. I didn't happen to go on a LinkedIn, apply for a role, or go to this go to the careers website. So I mean, would love to know that how has this community actually impacted you as well in your journey?
Yeah, I mean, there are so many points which I can discuss around the community. Uh, I'll try to put them into 3 or 4 points. One is so I'm specifically talking about the scalar community actually, because outside that, the part of my BTech community, it wasn't that strong. The NIT community which I had, it was mostly non-technical. Uh, okay, the part of when I was part of scalar community, it was both technical and non-technical. The first thing was that we had this like leaderboard in scalar, where the whole community who is part of learning program, they are there, and you can see how they are doing and how you are doing. Like in this whole journey where so many people they are learning from scalar, where do you see yourself and where do you want to see yourself? So when I started in Jan 2020, after a couple of weeks, I was like in top 50 out of 250 or 300 students. And my goal was that eventually, like in 3, 4, 5 months, I want to see myself in top 10. And in top 10, people were there from like really nice colleges, and they're like solving like 100% of problems. They were like solving every problem without taking any hint. And I was like taking hint. I was consuming some coins and other things, some points, but it actually made me uh, feel a very adrenaline kind of rush that okay, let's get into top 10. And that was the first thing which community helped me, is that it made the sense of competitiveness really high in myself. That was the first thing. So it made me like learn, indirectly learn. Second was that so there is this peer-to-peer mock interviews inside Scalar. So where we can go and we can set up a session where we both will interview each other. So when I was like in September or October, I did a lot of peer-to-peer interviews. So you are able to evaluate how you are doing as an interviewee, and also you will be able to come to the other side of table and think like an interviewer, and that will also make you improve upon, because then you will know as an interviewer perspective what you are looking to hear, and as an interview perspective what you should say to the other person. So in my case, it was like a lot of interviews which I did in terms of like peer-to-peer interviews. I got a lot of help. And again, what happens is that if you're part of like smaller community, you know everybody. And when you know everybody and you are nice to everybody and other people are nice to you, you won't get criticism that easily. Okay. If you are a friend of mine, a really nice friend, and you're like not doing well in DSA, I'll say you are doing okay, but you should improve on this and that. But if I do not know you, I'll directly say, buddy, you are not going to succeed with this approach. With this attitude, you're not going to succeed. And that is the idea, that when you are in a very large community, you can go to people who you are stranger to them, and they can directly give you a criticism which you can improve upon. That is the second part. Third is that we have this so people are coming from a large number of backgrounds, and then you will be able to understand, okay, what other kind of work is being done inside the industry. And how does this help is that there is a section where like it's a community driven section, like job opportunities. If there is an opportunity inside my company like Nitomi, I posted there inside the job opportunity which is driven by community. And apart from anything else which Scalar provides, like referral or mentorship, anything else, and then you will be able to consume out of it, then you will be able to make sense out of it. Okay, like these are the kind of technologies which are being asked in current market. So if you see that there are like 2 jobs for C++, 5 jobs for Node.js, and 3 jobs for Java, okay, like Node.js is pretty famous. Okay, so probably indirectly you will be able to find the technology on which you should put more focus upon. That is, and then fourth is that uh, there are a number of interviews which I got as a referral from Scalar community. Example, when I told you about this Microsoft referral which I got from Scalar Slack, somebody who was working in identity and they referred me. Similarly, I actually reached out to the people who are there in like inside working in India, and I got a lot of referrals. Also, there are people who are kind enough to tell you, okay, inside your CV now, this seems missing, this part seems missing, and you are not, until unless you do not improve upon this particular piece of your CV, you might not be able to get a call from my company at least. So, example, there's this very nice person from Intuit, and I shared my CV and a job ID with him, and they're like, okay, your CV looks good, but Intuit specifically looks for these kind of things. Why don't you put or restructure your CV in this particular way? So same structure of CV might not be accepted by every kind of company, but only when you are in touch with community, you are able to engage with them. You gather the knowledge. Okay, for these kind of companies, this kind of CV will work. For these kind of companies, this kind of CV will work. For these kind of companies, this technology, if I prominently tell that I work on this technology, I'll get a call. Okay. So these are like 3 or 4 things which I can concretely say. But again, being part of a larger community is always helpful, because then it gives you a sense of like competitiveness, what how you are doing and how others are doing. Because you started with like point zero, and you all are trying to reach till the end where you get a really nice job. Also, I remember that I really made a couple of nice friends. One of the friend is Tushar, and at present he is working in Flipkart. He was in the same batch, so I used to discuss with him, and he was super sharp. So from him, I was able to understand like, okay, how can he think so clearly? And then I learned the trait from him. So I was able to improve on that particular point. There's another friend, Sarabjit Singh, who is at this point of time working Razorpay. So at one point of time, we were like discussing like how much CTC you are expecting once you're out of scale up. And I was like, okay, this is the X number. And I was like, okay, this is the X number. I also feel I should be comfortable. And eventually, we were able to get better job. But in the all around picture, we are able to gather information from the community and understand for my level what is the CTC which is there in the market. Okay, and if I'm getting below that, if I am getting low volt, I can basically improve upon that.
I mean, those were really, really great points, and of course, just really showcase that like what's the power of the community. And of course, I mean,
Yeah.
it's not like just limited to like Scalar as a community. I mean, you can join really any tech community that you want, and you will get similar kind of experiences in each of these like kind of roles. But yeah, thank you so much for sharing that, Rishi. I mean, it is like really, really inspiring to know that. I think we can probably move to some questions from the audience. We did all actually answer some of them, but we can probably take some of them. So Prakash is asking, what's the identity team at Microsoft? So I think if from
Yeah,
what I understand is that identity usually deals with anything that is related to authentication. So like
that's true.
S2S authentication, or like especially like in larger companies like Okta, which are actually working towards identity management. And usually like the identity teams would probably work with other teams to like if they're having certain APIs to get like authorization tokens or managing all of those. So is that the kind of thing that you're also doing?
Uh, Somewhat. I am part of a very new term called decentralized identity. At this point of time, what we are doing, what is happening inside our IT or basically the tech sector is that, so let's say you require certain kind of information from some website. Let's say there is a website, LinkedIn, and when you put something on LinkedIn, LinkedIn says, okay, this seems good. You can also put this on Twitter, and then you put something on Twitter also. But during this whole process, you are putting your identity inside LinkedIn, then inside Twitter. Okay. But it's not that who you are managing your identity. LinkedIn is managing your identity. And it's dependent on LinkedIn. Any day, LinkedIn can tell you, okay, see, this is the thing which I'm going to make my basically the user who are registered to me make changes. And then you are, if you require to stay, if you want to stay on LinkedIn, you will be required to comply with those changes. In my case, in decentralized identity, we are working on a process where the identity will be owned by the person who actually who is the like. If I have, if I am Rishi, and what is my identity? I'm part of Microsoft, so I'm a Microsoft employee. So that is my identity, but it is owned by me. It is issued by Microsoft, but it is owned by me. I am the person who will decide with whom and how much I share those identities. So this is the part I'm working upon. It's very new concept. I would encourage you guys to go upon and write like decentralized identity, and it will give you a lot of information. And it's a very unique concept, which like there are people who are working upon, AWS is working upon, Google is working upon, then Okta is working upon. So they all are making these changes, and in coming years, decentralized identity is going to be the new way in which you are going to authenticate and authorize yourself. Yes.
Yeah, or makes a lot of sense. That's definitely very interesting. So I guess we can probably take this question. Is the university or the percentage of marks important?
Yes. So it depends at what level you are. If you are at a graduate level and you are trying to get into your first job, off campus or on campus, they matter. Okay, somewhat. There are certain companies which will put bar like, okay, if you should have 80% in 10th, 80% in 12th. So only when you are like at a graduate level, then they matter. Once you are inside a job and you have some experience, it doesn't matter. Then it doesn't matter. Okay.
All right.
But in really nice companies like Google and other companies, Google doesn't look at your like what have you done so far. Even if you are not from a if you are from a non-technical background, they're like, okay, just tell us what we want to know, and you are good to go.
All right.
Yeah.
So I guess one other question is, hi Rishi, what's your tech stack within Microsoft? I guess that's the question.
Okay. So within Microsoft, so it's Node.js, TypeScript. Then there is Dust.js, Cosmos DB. We are also working with, and then there is C Sharp. So yeah, this is it's in Kubernetes and Docker. So it's what is being followed in the team.
So it's
But I
quite
do
an
not,
extensive,
yeah, yeah, yeah,
quite
it
an
is.
extensive.
Yes, I also do not come from Node.js background. I come from JavaScript, sorry, Java and Spring Boot background. So I do
Yeah.
not know much about JavaScript. And but the good thing is that in Microsoft, it is encouraged to learn. Like growth mindset is encouraged. So I'm getting ample amount of support from my team members and my buddy and my manager. Okay, you learn these concepts and then you grow. Yeah, and this can also be done.
Okay. I think one of the other questions that we have is, what are the responsibilities of SD2? What workflow do you follow, Agile or Scrum? And what's your team strength? That's a good question, especially for those
Yeah.
who might
Okay.
be getting into senior roles.
Got it. Got it. Okay. So before I answer that, there is somebody who asked, like, do you know all these technologies before you joined? No, I do not know. Still, I do not know. I'm learning them, and they were not asked in the interview. They just judge if you are like super intelligent. It's not like super intelligent, it's like super eager to learn. Okay. And if you're super eager to learn, even if you're like mediocre person, they'll take you. Yeah. So let's talk about the kind of team structure there is in Microsoft. Actually, let's not just talk about Microsoft. It's like it's different in different kind of companies. In Accenture or a service company or in Fidelity also, they were following very hardcore Scrum. Like you used to have this like ceremonies, multiple ceremonies, start of sprint and then end of the sprint, and then you discuss about other things. So that is very hardcore agile. So that was being followed in Fidelity and Accenture. When I became part of 𝐼𝐼, it was because it is a growing organization. It is agile, but the agile will be twisted and turned. We were trying to implement a standard process, but it was agile, somewhat agile. And the difference between the difference between Accenture, 𝐼𝐼, and Microsoft is that in Accenture, in Microsoft, I was part of development team, and then there was a separate QA team, there was a separate DevOps team. My part is develop, QA part is to test, DevOps part is to deploy. In Microsoft, these all things are merged into one. There is no separate QA team. There is no separate DevOps team. There is only one team, which is us. We will be the person who will be developing, who will be testing, who will be deploying, taking to production. Yeah. So these are two kind of structures, both in terms of agile. There are companies which follow hardcore agile. There are companies which are growing. Hence, due to the nature of their growth, they want to be able to follow this kind of agile and other technologies. Also, there is a difference between the way in which your team is built. There could be three different parts of your team: QA different, dev different, DevOps different, or like Microsoft like structure. Also, I give interview into like last year in 𝐏𝐫𝐸. 𝐏𝐫𝐸 is really nice organization. They also had the same structure that everything is part of one team. There is no QA. There is only SDE. SD is responsible for creating, writing unit test cases, testing them end to end, both functional and integration, and then deploying it to multiple environments. So yeah, these are two kind of different structures.
All right. Well, yeah, I mean,
There
like,
is, yeah, sorry, yeah, go on, Shivay.
all right. I'm just saying that, I mean, it kind of depends from company to company whether they follow like an agile or a scrum based process. But,
Yeah,
I mean, regardless of whether what's the process like, your experience, your tech stack is what really matters. Like, how you are able to conceptualize your knowledge and then put that into code. So probably that might help. I think we can probably take one last question. So Silpa is asking, will Microsoft look into your tech certification that you have, like Google Cloud certification needed as experienced person?
no. So I tell you this very straight. There are only three things which are looked into, and out of them, two are super important, and they are agnostic to any technology on which you are working. One is your DSA. Second is your system design, both high level and low level. These are tech agnostic. It doesn't matter if you are a cloud engineer, network engineer, normal engineer, something else. These two things will always be asked. Now comes the third part, which is technology. In certain companies, example I give you, so there's a company, Capillary. It's a super nice company. They pay really well. The work is super good. And I gave my interview there. I fell through it. I got, so when I out of Scalar, this is one of the company. Apart from 𝐼𝐼, I got an offer, and there they asked me DSA in the first round. In second round, it was Java specific. In third round, it was everything in high level design, low level design to high level design. And then fourth round was their like normal managerial round. So this is one kind of company which is like growing company, which we can put into bucket of like startup and then a little better startup. Then there are companies which are mammoth companies like Apple, like Google, Facebook, Microsoft. They follow a standard process where they probably won't ask you, or they will not look upon your tech certification. Doesn't matter. Your Google Cloud certification doesn't matter. What matters is that indirectly your tech certification. Example, if you have your Google Cloud certification, so that knowledge can be used to you know sail through your high level system design. So that is something which you can use. So indirectly, they won't directly look upon your certification, but your skill which you have learned out of the certification can be used in multiple stages of your interviews. So you are required to go to this DSA. That is anyhow you are required to learn. If you have Google Cloud certification or AWS Cloud certification or Azure Cloud certification, you will actually get help in your high-level design round. Then if you have certification for clean coding or like design pattern, then you will get help in your, or if you know technologies like, or if you know this like something like Java certification, okay, so you know OOPS really well, then you will be able to do good in LLD. So your certifications are not directly looked into, they are being helpful indirectly to multiple stages of your interviews, and eventually, if required in certain companies, you will be going through one of the technology rounds. That is on you if you want to get into full stack or just backend. But that is agnostic to technology. Like that is pertaining to technology. What technology you want to get into? In some companies there will be a round. In some companies there won't be a round. But if it's a good company, if our company is a good company, there will be DSA round, there will be LLD, and there will be HLD. Yeah. I hope that answers a lot of queries.
Yeah. Well, I guess we are also slightly out of time, but I think, of course, I mean, since the audience is coming on your channel, like, probably we can share I mean, your credentials on the chat
Yeah.
so that if anyone has any specific questions, you can always reach out to Rishi. But I just want to personally thank you, Rishi, for spending your time and actually really sharing this great journey, because I was personally very inspired from it, especially how you made that jump from service-based companies to full-time roles, and especially a company like prestigious company like Microsoft, and also that to an international offer. So thank you so much for sharing your journey, and it was really great to host this session with you. But yes, and that's all I'll probably just also recommend to everyone that whether you have 2 years experience, whether you're a student, or 10 years of experience, it's always possible to make that change. The only thing that you need is really that like that structured kind of an approach towards being able to crack these interviews. And of course, I mean, there are multiple ways to do it, and everyone might have their own way of journey of doing it. Of course, with Rishi, as you mentioned, Rishi, that you tried out various methods, and some of them worked for you, some of them did not work for you, but you realized at the end that that kind of a closed mentoring experience, being able to get that structured learning approach and collaborative learning with other peers, power of communities was something that really actually helped you out. And of course, I mean, everyone will have their own journeys, but of course, we just wanted to highlight one of the ones that is possible to get success. But yeah, with that in mind, I mean, I would like to conclude from my end. If you wanted to probably share anything else.
No, that's actually what you've said is that's totally true. I just want to conclude like the whole conversation is that
Yeah.
me coming from a rural background, I like failed in second semester in mathematics. From there, like not just like tier 3 university, a failed student of tier 3 university can go till Microsoft Ireland if you work with consistency, if you know what you're going for, and if you keep your motivation high, if you keep your zeal and enthusiasm high, then you can achieve. Then you can achieve. Also, I'm sharing this form. If you have any questions regarding my journey, and if you feel I can help you in any way, I would encourage you guys to just fill this form, and I'll get your information, and then I'll be able to help you out. Most probably, I'll give you a call, and then we can discuss whatever doubts you have.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. I think that we can probably conclude. And of course, if you wish to connect with Rishi, do fill out that form. But yeah, it is really great hosting you, Rishi, and it is really inspiring for me personally. So thank you so much for inviting us as well on your YouTube channel. By the way, it says that Navneet is saying that it is asking for your permission. Probably the permission might be something that you might have to
Okay.
change.
Just Navneet, just give me a minute. Let me sort this out. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Also,
actually,
yeah. Yeah.
the
Uh,
permission needs to
give
change.
cool. Just give me a minute. Yeah, Pratik, definitely you can.
All right. So I think it's working now. Yeah. Now
Can
it's working.
yeah, Yeah, Dominic, can you please retry? And anyone can please retry, and then they can confirm here in the chat.
Yeah, I just retried it and it's working.
Oh, yeah, awesome.
All right. So I think we can conclude now. Thank you so much, Rishi, for again, inviting us over and sharing your journey. It is really nice connecting
Thanks,
with everyone.
Shivay.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right.
In any way I can help the community. Yeah, awesome.
All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thanks a lot, buddy.